Okay, so good morning everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. Today is 29th of August and we are going to discuss the Hindu paper for today. Okay, there are some topics that we have selected from the paper. Let us have a look at them. So the topics for today are first, the 5 years on Taliban are still a fork in the road. This is on your page number 8 and this relates to your GS2 paper and particularly to the topic of international relations. Then you have second topic, a shared disaster beyond borders and politics. Geopolitics, this is your page number 8 and this again would relate to your GS2. One will be IR portion and the other portion would be GS3 when we talk about the transboundary problem of the disaster. Okay, so GS3, disaster management. Then third, this is Unkind cuts on page number 8 and this is with respect to GS2 polity. Then you have old rules and new rebels. This is on page number 9. This is a huge article and this will pertain to GS1 society. Okay, we will be learning about how the transformation of society is induced by the incoming of the newer generations. Then you have fifth topic. This is center eases norms for defense exports and licenses. This is on page number 10. This is GS3 primarily. And within that, you can say it is from the topic of economics because we talk about trade, exports, and also you can include it within science and technology if you wish to. Okay, it can be added as a point there. Then the next topic would be Dhaka positively weighs joining the Mecca Pact. This is on page number 10 and we know that this is in GS paper 2 and international relations. Apart from that, there is PIB news as well that we will be covering. So this is about Union Health Ministry reviews progress towards Malaria Elimination Target by 2030. Now this is from your GS2 and social justice. Further, it can be categorized into the topic of health. Okay. So let us start. First of all, for all of you who are interested in joining the integrated UPSC Prelims and Mains preparation by Unacademy, this is the lowest price ever that has been there. It is displayed on the screen, 16,999, and you will get an extension of up to 12 months free. Okay, you can also get a free Indian Express subscription and you will have to use this code IAS English. Okay, so the offer will end by 31st of August. So if you are interested, you can get into contact with the team and the description is given in the comment box. All right, so let us start with the first article for today. This is your page number 8, GS2 international relations. 5 years on, Taliban are still a fork in the road. Okay, first of all, we have to understand Taliban. Okay, when were they in power and what now? What is the present situation? Okay, for understanding this article, we need to understand the historical background. So let us understand that first. Firstly, you will see that Afghanistan has gone through 4 phases of conflict and regime change. Okay, when we talk about Afghanistan, there can be categories in which we can divide the historical context. There is phase 1. The phase 1 was in 1978 to 1989. Okay, 1978 to 1989. This was your phase 1. In this, you will find that in 1978, the communist coup overthrew the republic. There was Soviet invasion in 1979. Okay, and then there was Mujahideen forces that were fighting with the backing of the United States and some regional supporters like Pakistan. Okay, this was the phase 1 in Afghanistan political history, you could say. This is Cold War proxy. Now comes the phase 2. This is 1989 to 1996. This is your phase 2. What all things happened here? here you will find that the Soviet Union, they withdrew. Okay, and because of this withdrawal, there was an institutional vacuum that was created. Okay, moreover, the factions that were operating on the soil of Afghanistan, they started fighting with each other. Okay, and this fighting intensified, and then you will find that Taliban ultimately seized Kabul in the year of 1996. Okay, and then it formed the first Islamic Emirate. Okay, then comes phase 3. Phase 3 is from 2001 to 2021. Okay, this is your phase 3. Now this is where the US intervenes, and particularly because you would recall of the 9/11 attacks. Okay, so all of these 9/11 operations were to be ousted. They wanted to oust out this grounds of Afghanistan where the operatives were working. Okay, so Taliban was in the scanner. All right, so here you will find that there was Western backed Islamic Republic that was established. All right, so this means that Taliban was overthrown. Okay, 2001 to 2021, it was when the Western forces came into the Afghanistan territory. Okay, and now since 2021 to present, this is your phase 4. This is phase 4. Okay, and in phase 4, what happened? There was withdrawal in 2021. Withdrawal of the forces, of the Western forces. Okay, particularly the US troops. They now withdrew. Western forces. Okay, so right now it is the second time. This is the second emirate. Second emirate. The first one was during the period of phase 2, that is 1989 to 1996. Okay, that is when first Islamic Emirate was established in 1996. Okay, the second one from 2021 onwards to the present one. Okay, so US, United States of America, invested a huge amount of money into this operations. All right, but as soon as they left, you will find that there was again a vacuum that was created and Taliban took over. Okay, so now let us try to read this article. The history is clear to us. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4. Now we are at the phase 4. Okay, so the past 5 years of Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan under Taliban rule resemble the backwaters. Okay, so 47 years, when they say 47 years, we are counting since the phase 1, since 1978. Now, the author is trying to tell us that it has become a more stable country. Okay, since the takeover in 2021, now Taliban governed Afghanistan has become much more stable. Okay, so citing some examples out of it, citing some positive sides of it. So IEA 2.0 transition was as chaotic as the IEA 1.0 transition in 1996. It spared the country from mass retribution. Afghanistan is largely stable and secure. Now IEA 2.0, what are the positives of this? We are calling this second Islamic Emirate as the IEA 2.0. What all positive things they have done? They have disallowed their territory for operations against other countries. That means you cannot further use Afghanistan soil to raise war or raise militant approaches on the other countries. One thing. Second, a number of refugees from Pakistan and Iran, they have returned to Afghanistan because of these kind of stable conditions. Okay, so two positives. One, no more use of territory for terrorizing. Second, refugees have returned. However, These are the positives, but there are negatives also. Okay, in negatives, you will find that with respect to the socio-political contrast with the preceding Western designed republic, remember the phase 3 when we were talking about the domination and the incoming of the USA troops, you will find that the Western designed republic, there were socio-political reforms that were there. Now it has gone back. Okay, it was widely perceived as a huge regression, and Taliban 2.0 swiftly reinstated the harshest rule in the contemporary Islamic world. They have gone forward with regression of the socio political context. Okay, for example, when we talk about gender, okay, gender segregation is there. Girls are not allowed to study beyond class 6th. Okay, there is a ban on music, and earlier there was a ban on child marriages, but this ban has been lifted. So many social political contexts, this is regarded as the negatives of the 2.0 Taliban 2.0. Okay, now when we talk about this West, okay, we talk about United States of America. The West in particular, it felt deeply betrayed by the Taliban's cynical disregard for their commitments under the transitional accord signed in Doha in 2020. Understand this, that there was a Doha accord. When in 2020 the US troops were to withdraw, they said that if we go out of your territory, you have to commit to certain things. Okay, that was the Taliban commitments. The Taliban commitments were there, and the US commitments in place were there. Okay, US commitment said that we will withdraw our troops. Okay, we will facilitate the release of prisoners. Okay, we will review the sanctions and adjust politically. All right, all of these we will do. US commitments were there. Taliban commitments, on the other hand, it talked about counter-terrorism assurances. That means there shall be no one who can use our territory for terrorizing others. Okay, then we will have intra-Afghan dialogue. That means within Afghanistan, I will have a dialogue, and we will try to mark out and give as much rights to the people as possible. And also, there would be a commitment to a future political settlement. Okay, understand this, that the Western designed republics, okay, earlier that were there in the power, they as well as the Taliban, which took over in 2021, both of them would try to design a political control so that both are in power and they can switch powers with each other. Okay, something of that sort, it was arrived as a commitment by Taliban. All right. However, has Taliban kept its side of commitments? It has not. And that is why West feels betrayed. West feels betrayed by the Taliban's cynical disregard for their commitments under the transitional accord. Okay. Despite intense Pakistani lobbying for IEA 2.0 to be accepted and formally recognized, there was global unanimity to withhold both till such draconian policies were moderated. Okay, that means, what does it say? It says that Pakistan was already lobbying for the international recognition. They wanted that Afghanistan, which was taken over by Taliban, they wanted it to be recognized internationally. Okay, However, when we talk about the nations around the globe, they were apprehensive of this. Okay, they did not want to engage with Afghanistan when Taliban is there, unless the policies that are there, social political context, it is to be moderated. Unless the people have rights, okay, unless the people live fruitful lives, we are not going to engage with Afghanistan. Okay. Also, United Nations Security Council resolution. Okay, when we talk about the global image of Afghanistan, UNSC resolution 2593. This is particularly important. UNSC resolution 2593. This was adopted on August 30th, 2021. Okay, and this particularly, apart from a number of things that was listed within this resolution, it was said particularly that Afghan territory should not be used for terrorism. Okay, and one thing is this, that it should not be used for terrorism, plus human rights, including the rights of women, children, minorities, all of these have to be upheld. Okay, so this means that there was a global commitment. There was a global commitment which was hinged on this fact that unless Afghanistan and Taliban, unless Taliban mends its ways, we are not going to engage with it. Right? Coming to the next point, we talk about the political architecture in Afghanistan. Okay, so it is said that the political architecture is that of an uncodified unitary theocracy. Okay, that means it is based on religion and it is not dictated completely. It is not codified. Okay, it is IEA 2.0. It has often cited that the Holy Quran is its constitution. Okay, that means it is going to be a theocratic state and it is going to derive its authority from this theocratic authority, from this Holy Quran. Okay, and then it is going to follow the Islamic school of law. This is Hanafi jurisprudence as its common law. All right, all of this is uncodified. All right, so if it is going to be a theocratic state, then there has to be a supreme leader. Okay, who is the supreme leader? It is Hibatullah Akhund Zada. Okay, he was appointed supreme leader and he has the combined powers as head of the state, commander-in-chief and religious leader of Afghanistan. So much power is vested in one person. Okay, next he will head 26-member leadership council and this is the top decision making body of IEA 2.0. Okay, it will include whom? It will include the prime minister along with 3 deputy leaders. Okay, so this is the political architecture. It means there is authority. There is authority which is considered to be the supreme leader or the religious leader of Afghanistan. Vested within him is the powers of head of state as well as the powers of commander in chief. Okay, now we talk about economic aspects. Economic aspects, whether Taliban has improved since it came into power, since the takeover happened in 2021, have the economic aspects improved for the country? So the article would say that there has been a relative improvement in Afghanistan economy. Draconian measures were taken. Okay, draconian measures were taken already and therefore it has led to reduction in corruption. Second thing, there has been better fiscal discipline. That is, national currency, the Afghani, is stable. It is much more stable now when we consider its exchange rate with respect to the other international currencies. Here, one important point that you can remember, apart from all of these statistics that are given, one thing that we should see is that the growth rate for the GDP for 2025 was 4.3% and is expected to be 2.3% in 2026 for Afghanistan. Okay, so the economic progress is there, but it is fragile. It is not a very strong progress. And we will see the reason. We will also see the reason. Here, first, we will see the social aspect. Social aspect. Okay, so you will see that poverty. We talk about poverty in the nation. So nearly 50% is below the national poverty line. Okay, almost 49 million population is there and 50% of them are below the national poverty line. Okay, this points to a serious social injustice pertaining in the society. Second, GDP per capita, it has decreased by 4% in 2025. Okay, Human Development Index, okay, which tracks health, education, standard of living parameters, it is 0.496 and it is amongst the world's lowest. What about unemployment? Approximately 13.3%. And when we talk about women employment and youth employment, it is the worst affected. And it is externally dependent. Okay, that is, it is dependent upon the financial aids that is given by the external countries. And what about foreign direct investment? There is negligible foreign direct investments. Exports cover only 15% of the imports. That means there is a huge amount of trade imbalance. trade imbalance. That means the economy is not going to last for a long time. Okay, unless it receives huge amount of aids, grants from the countries, from the nations. Okay, so this is dependent. Social aspect is dependent upon the revenue, aid, grants. Revenues generated when people get employed, when there is productive employment opportunities, when there are productive employment economic activities. Aid is given by the countries for development. Grants are given for these countries. Okay, only then it will be able to have positive social indicators. Okay, so we can see in the past 5 years now, we can see that all of this experience has led IEA 2.0 to seek international acceptance. Okay, it has led IEA 2.0. They want to seek international acceptance. However, they are not taking the necessary domestic reforms. Okay, we have seen in the earlier part of the article that domestic reforms like the rights of women, okay, educational opportunities for girls up to class 6 is only there. Okay, lifting of ban with respect to child marriage was there. Okay, so many things are needed to be reformed at the domestic level. Okay, but they are not taking these reforms. On the other hand, they are also seeking international acceptance. Okay, and the question is, have they received this international acceptance? We can say partially yes and partially no as well. We will see how. IEA now claims to have 40 active diplomatic missions abroad. More than 20 countries are represented in Kabul, even as Russia is so far the only country to have recognized IEA and opened an embassy in Kabul. Only Russia, right? What about Pakistan, China, Iran, and India? We have established links with Kabul. Okay, however, it is without extending formal recognition. That is, we do not formally recognize it. However, on certain aspects, we have extended our hand and we have tried to establish links with Kabul. Okay. With respect to Iran, Central Asian republics, the Gulf countries, and Turkey, you'll find that they have also extended trade and logistical links. Okay. So we could say that in the region, it is relatively stable. The countries which are dealing with Afghanistan, the kind of relationship they share with Afghanistan, it is relatively stable. However, still there is a problem. The problem is that of formal recognition. Formal recognition plus international acceptance. Okay, unless they are recognized formally, they will not be getting huge inflows of aids and grants so that they can get back on their feet. Okay, if they are not accepted internationally, their trade imbalance would continue forever. All right, and therefore, now that they have been in power for now 4 to 5 years, they will try to seek it. Okay, now what about New Delhi? What about India's engagement with Afghanistan? India has been skeptical of IEA 2.0. That is, we have been doubting whether they would be able to carry out good governance in the country or not. Okay, and we have also aligned ourselves to the global norms. We do not have a full diplomatic recognition of them. We do not have a full diplomatic recognition, but there is some substantive bilateral engagement. Okay. Also in October 2025, there was a visit by the foreign minister of Afghan. Okay, and subsequently, we have also seen that the trade between India and Afghan, it has reached to $1 billion. This is one of the highest. Okay, Afghanistan, India, for Afghanistan, India is going to become one of the largest markets for the Afghan exports. All right. So this is with respect to our trade. How much of economic linkages do we have with Afghanistan? Okay. Now, with 5 years of governance behind them, some IEA leaders are beginning to see the unsustainability of their hardline domestic socio-political agenda. Understand this, that now they are shifting. Okay. Now there is a push because they took over in 2021. the governance lessons were there. Okay. Internationally, they were quite ignored. They did not receive aids, grants so that they could develop. Internally, also, the economy is on the verge of collapse if your trade imbalance is there. It is not like you can produce everything yourself. All right. Economic activities are not there. And then you will find that unemployment is also surging, 13.3%, along with women and youth, who are the worst affected here. Okay. Apart from that, they have said that they would be lifting the ban on child marriages. All of these things are there. But there has been a push towards seeking international recognition by Taliban. Okay, that means they want to be recognized internationally, and therefore they have said one thing that is there, that Taliban now claims that ban on higher education for girls is due to lack of funds for segregated education. Okay, this is the change in stance. This is a change in stance. Why? Because earlier it was as a policy that we do not want to educate our girl child beyond the class 6th. All right. Now they have changed this. This is a reason that they are stating that we have lack of funds, and that is the reason that we cannot help them to study. All right. So we can see that Taliban is being pushed. It can be influenced to adopt the domestic reforms when its economy is collapsing. All right. So therefore, what the author suggests is that we should collectively come up with a critical mass of incentives to gently induce the EIA to reform. Okay. So the final line here that he is stating is that we want to have some critical mass of incentives. Okay, we could say that these aids or the grants that we are giving out to you, or the official development assistance that is being given out to you, it is only conditional on the fact that you introduce domestic reforms that are much needed at the present point of time. Okay, so this could be a solution. This could be a solution that could help us understand that how Taliban can reform its governance. All right. So this is the article. Now this is a mains question. This is related to the topic, and the question reads: Afghanistan under Taliban rule continues to face political, economic, social and diplomatic challenges. Right. Discuss the major issues confronting the country and their implications for regional stability. Okay. So in the introduction part, you could write about, first, you could start with talking about the Taliban takeover. Okay. Taliban takeover 2021. Then you should proceed to state that yes, there have been some security gains. Yes, corruption has reduced. Relative security gains have been there. Okay. Then you would write about the persistence, structural fragility in distribution of resources. Okay. And then you may write about the international isolation. Okay. That means it is still not internationally formally recognized. Coming to the body part of the answer, since this is a 15 marks question, you can divide the challenges. Okay, as it is given in the question, you have to write about political, economic, social, diplomatic challenges. Okay, a number of challenges have been mentioned in the article we have studied. We can also write political. Okay, you could talk about non-inclusive governance. Could talk about the concentration of power. Remember, we talked about supreme leader, religious leader. There is concentration of power. What else could you write? You could write that there is weak institutional legitimacy. Weak institutional legitimacy that is also causing that the other nations do not want to engage properly with the present day government of Afghanistan. Okay. Next, economic. What are economic challenges? Could talk about poverty. Okay, you know that more than 50% is below the national poverty line. Poverty plus unemployment. We have seen the statistics, 13.3%. You could talk about aid dependence. You could also talk about low investments. Low investments from the other nations. Then social challenges. What are social challenges? There is restriction with respect to women rights. There is exclusion in education. Third, there is food insecurity also. All right. Then you could talk about security challenges. Security as well as diplomatic challenges. All right. You could talk about terror networks that are still operating partially on the grounds of Afghanistan. You could talk about border instability. You can also write the point about internal factionalism. That means the groups are also going to fight with each other, and that is going to create a political upheaval maybe in the future. All right. So for the implications of regional stability, this is the first part we have covered. For the next part, implications for regional stability, we have to address that. Implications for regional stability. Okay, so we could write about terrorism spillover. Terrorism spillover. What is this? This means that if there is terrorism that is operating, if there are terror networks that are operating on the grounds of Afghanistan, then we are also not very secure. We also have to tighten our security forces. Okay, they may spill over to our territories also and create issues of cross-border terrorism. All right. Then you have refugees inflow. Okay, that means if there are displaced people, if there are immigrants who are coming into these regions, they can be much more pushed into radical forms. All right. Then you have the problem of drug trafficking. Okay, Afghanistan has been known for that. All right. And in the conclusion part, you can write about inclusive governance. You can write about how the stable Afghanistan will also lead to stability in the region. It will lead to India also being able to access the Central Asian republics and improve its economic as well as cultural relations with these countries. Okay, so this is how you write this answer. All right, so let us move to the next topic. This is your GS2. Okay, this is GS2 IR and GS3 disaster management. All right. So all of you have seen that there has been in the last 2 days there have been flash floods in Nepal. Okay. So this article is about that. It is written with the perspective of understanding that disaster can become a transboundary problem. That means it wouldn't be within the control of a single country to manage disasters in this way, and therefore there must be points of collaboration between the countries. The countries in question, they are India, China and Nepal. All right, so the article is a shared disaster beyond borders and geopolitics. All right, so let us have a recap of how the disaster has occurred. So it was initially appearing to be a 4.4 magnitude earthquake. Okay, it struck near the Nepal-China border and it triggered the collapse of enormous glacial slab. Okay, this glacial slab, when it fell down almost a kilometer into the valley floor, it resulted in the flash floods. All right. However, later it came into the knowledge that United States Geological Survey has said that seismic activity that created this 4.4 magnitude earthquake was not actually an earthquake. Okay, it was not actually an earthquake. It was, however, caused by the landslide. Okay, the impact of this landslide was as such that it felt that it was equivalent to an earthquake measuring 5.2. Okay, so this is not caused by tectonic shifts. It is being caused due to the landslide that had a such huge impact on falling. And this is particularly concerning because villages, towns, vital infrastructures like your bridges, hydropower stations, all of these have been completely decimated. Okay, and you will also find that 475 megawatts of generating capacity has been wiped off when we talk about the electricity grid of Nepal. Now, he raises a point, the author raises a point that for Nepal and its two neighbors, the catastrophic force of Mother Nature is a reminder that political dimensions of geography are relevant only insofar that nature does not intervene unexpectedly and destructively. Human and property losses continue to mount in all three countries, including Nepal. So, what the point is here, the point we are trying to state is that when we talk about the catastrophes, we talk about the disasters that take place across the countries. Also, we will find that a number of tourists from these countries are being present in those zones. They are also getting affected. So our geography is limited only until the fact that the disaster occurs and it leads to affecting the people as well as the territory of India, China, and Nepal. All right. Talking about the location, China's Giryong port. It is the largest land trade port in the Tibet Autonomous Region and the primary gateway between Nepal and China. You can locate Giryong here. Okay, you can see how people would travel from Kathmandu. They will travel to this port and then onwards to Mount Kailash. Here you have Lake Mansarovar. All right. So a number of tourists as well as pilgrims go to these places and follow these routes. All of them will be affected. All right. So this Giryong port, it is the international standard land port and it is built at a cost of $175.8 million. Okay. It is now effectively buried beneath heavy sediment and debris. So this says that we are not only facing economic cost, we are also facing the social cost. You'll find that the power supplies, local communication links all have been broken off and there are people missing. And there has been confirmation. There has been the saying by the Ministry of External Affairs. It has confirmed that Indian nationals are also missing or they are untraced. Okay, they cannot be found. Okay, most of them were tourists come pilgrims headed to the abode of Lord Shiva at Kailash Mansarovar. This place. Okay, this place. So this is the route and this is how they travel. All right. So flood fallout for India. For India also this has been a case wherein the floods have resulted in us calling our authorities so that they can take in the necessary precautions, particularly on the border areas. Okay, you will find that in Bihar as well as in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, in Bihar, flood waters have reached to Gandak, Kosi, and Ganga rivers. Okay, and riverside communities were evacuated to safer locations here. Authorities in Uttar Pradesh were also put on alert for the overflowing rivers from Nepal naturally into the Indian territory. All right, so we have the bordering states. They are also going to be affected. Okay, so it is not like we are not helping out our neighboring nation, Nepal. We are helping them out also. We are providing for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief program. Okay, we have dispatched our Indian Air Force. We have dispatched more than 47.5 tons of emergency relief material to Nepal. Okay, so we have been helping out. We have also tried to practice necessary precaution for our own population. All right. Now, there is a case for cooperation. This article suggests that there is a case for cooperation, that keeping all your enmities aside, okay, can we talk about a point of collaboration in these difficult times? Okay, in these times. Okay, so he is saying that the question that arises therefore is now how to transcend some of the parochial or the narrow features of geopolitics while by no means ignoring the compulsions of real politic. Real politic means that what is on ground practical. Okay, what is on ground the geopolitics, what is on ground the international relations between these countries. Okay, we understand all of these things, you should not ignore them, but let us also have some points of collaboration so that this transboundary disaster can be managed effectively. Okay, so therefore these countries must come together and create a feasible framework for collaboration and coordination. That is the suggestion that is given by the author. All right, so there is a mains based question, this is of 10 marks. It says transboundary disasters increasingly demand cooperation beyond geopolitical rivalries. Discuss in the context of recent Nepal-China floods and their implications for India and wider Himalayan region. I want you to draft introduction, body and conclusion for this answer, and please write it in the comment box. Okay, you just need to write the keywords. Okay, what all things would you write in the introduction, in the body part, how will you divide it into various headings, and then what keywords would you put in the conclusion. All right, just like we have done for the previous news article. Okay, now coming to the third article, this is Unkind cuts. This is on page number 8 and this is GS2 polity. Okay, so it reads the scale of ECI's, that is Election Commission of India's, deletions in Telangana and Karnataka, it needs explanation. Okay, now first of all of you know this has been in news for a very long time. SIR, that is Special Intensive Revision Process. Okay, even the Supreme Court had upheld that ECI, that is Election Commission of India, can carry out this. Okay, because it is empowered by Article 324, Article 326 of the Constitution and Section 21, Clause 3 of the Representation of People's Act 1950. Okay, it can carry out these special intensive revision. All right, but here you will understand that the onus is on the elector to prove that he should still be on the electoral roll. Okay, so what is the problem here? There has been increasingly leading to a clear case of disenfranchisement. This means, what does disenfranchisement mean? It means that your right to vote has been cancelled. Okay, you cannot have the right to vote anymore. Okay, so there has been a judgment. I already told you about the judgment by the Supreme Court. It has allowed, Honorable Supreme Court has allowed the SIR process to proceed. Okay, but the problem here, understand this, that SIR has now struck out a fifth of the names from the electoral rolls in Telangana and Karnataka. This is huge. 1/5. That means out of the electoral rolls, almost 20%. Okay, to put it into precise numbers, 22.5% in Telangana and 19.5% in Karnataka. Okay, these people have been, their names have been struck out from the electoral rolls. One more thing, that when we talk about the capitals like Bengaluru, okay, in Karnataka, 5 constituencies in Bengaluru, they have lost more than half of their electors, while 9 of the Hyderabad's 15 have seen deletions of more than 40%. Okay, the problem is, understand that these are cities and these are population dense cities. Okay, this means that huge number of people are present over there, and when you talk about deletions, the deletions of these magnitude may be something that might strike us as maybe something is going on there. All right, so in this context, the author writes that if these deletions are accurate, okay, first of all, deletions are there. Yes, almost 20% deletions when we talk about Karnataka and Telangana. If these deletions are accurate, then what about the earlier elections? Okay, what about earlier elections? That means in that you will have a number of people in the electoral roll who should not have been included. Okay. The second thing is that if they are justified, those struck of the rolls must have left the states. Okay. And when we talk about earlier elections, if it is accurate, what about earlier elections? First and second, we talk about if they have left the state or they are within the state but have moved to different territories. Okay, two situations arise. One, they have left the state completely, that is permanently left the state. Then their name should be struck off. No problem in that. But within the state, if they have moved to some other place, then it should lead to the movement of their names. It should not be completely elimination, deletion of their names from the electoral roll. All right. So that is what it reads. If they move within Karnataka or Telangana, it would only relocate a voter's name on the same state roll and not remove it altogether. Yet, this is neither borne out of recent survey data nor by the government's own population estimates. That means it is not something that is backed by evidence. Okay. Now, when the SIR for Bihar was being conducted, court had asked the political parties that why so many of you, very few objections were there. Okay. Now the questions will hold true for the southern states also. Here you will see that there is opacity in which it is being conducted. Why? There is one point that the author points out, that there is elector divided by population ratio that needs to be published. This needs to be published, and this is not yet published by the ECI. That is what the opacity is about. That means if elector divided by population, the lesser, let us say elector divided by population is less. If it is less, that means you have enlisted less number of voters. You were not able to enroll a substantial number of voters from the population. Okay. And therefore, this is pointing towards opacity in how the SIR is being conducted. Okay. So, because it is the only test of under enrollment of voters. Even when we talk about West Bengal, there has been disenfranchisement of lakhs of electors. Okay. When people lost their right to vote, they went to the court. Okay, they went to the tribunals. And in this, when we have filed this RTI, right to information, you'll find that out of the 38 lakh appeals, 82,000, barely 82,000 of the nearly 38 lakh appeals have been decided. Okay, that means the decisions that are being taken, because there is huge pendency of cases, 38 lakh appeals, so only 82,000 of them have been decided. And out of them, even when the decision is taken, 90% of those decisions have favored electors seeking restoration. That means, understand this, how grave an error it could be, that 82,000 cases have been decided. Out of that 90%, in 90% of the cases where the deletions of names were there, they have been restored as an elector from that region. Okay. So this could point towards this opacity is also not justified on the ground that there are significant errors. Significant errors as the West Bengal experience tells us. All right. So this is what the article talks about. Okay. Now coming to this next article, this is on page number 9 and this is GS1 and from the subtopic of society. Okay, so this article, this is written in a story format. Okay, so that is why I have given you in a summary format to understand with respect to the changing nature of society. So there has been clash of generations. There is Khap tradition versus the Gen Z aspirations in Haryana. All right. So understand this, that the traditional Khap authority, what are they? They are informal community councils. Okay. They do not have any constitutional status. All right. And they are based on clan or Gotra lineage. What do? They regulate the social norms. For example, they have strict controls over who can marry whom. Okay, whether you can marry this person or not. So strict control over marriage, Gotra rules, and inter-caste relationships. They want to maintain that social hierarchy, and in doing so, they are going to achieve this outcome by keeping a check on the society. All right. Upholding honor. That is, decisions often enforce patriarchal community customs. Okay, that means the kind of norms that are tilted in the favor of men. Then you have limited women's autonomy here. Limited women's autonomy when it dictates the dress code, mobility of women, and how are they allowed to behave in the public. Okay, so this is traditional Khap authority in Haryana. Now, Gen Z aspirations. Now, when we talk about the Khap tradition, it is something that is prevalent in Haryana, it is prevalent in Rajasthan, parts of Rajasthan, and western parts of Uttar Pradesh as well. When we talk about the newer generation, that is Gen Z, aspirations of them are, first, they talk about valuing individual choice. Okay, they value their own personal decisions over collective dictates. This is a kind of a dictation. This is known as dictation. That means I will dictate the kind of terms I will want to set for my own life. I will not follow something that everyone is following. This is your individual choice. This is your individual aspiration, and you are allowed to do so. Does the constitution enable you to do so? Yes, it does. Okay, you have a set of fundamental rights wherein you have so many freedoms enlisted under Article 19. All right. Second, education and career focus. You have high emphasis on higher education, jobs, and financial independence. That means they do not want to depend on their families for a very long time. They want to move out and they want to pursue higher education. Okay. Some of them would not want to get entangled into marriage systems, and therefore they want to also pursue their higher education and pay much more priority to that. Okay. Then you have gender equality. It rejects patriarchal restrictions, okay, restrictions that are based upon this Khap Panchayat, and they demand equal rights. They also demand that they must have personal freedom and mobility. That means right to choose their life partners, to travel and to express themselves. Core conflict here, what is the conflict here? The conflict is between the traditional community control and the individual autonomy. Community control and the individual autonomy. This is tradition versus modernity. Okay. Now, why is Khap authority being challenged? You will find that there are number of social institutional systems that will create a change in the society. Okay. With the technological progress, with the progress in education, with the progress with respect to the facilities that are available in the cities, you'll find that the control, the village control will be weaker. Okay, you have number of such social institution systems like education, urbanization and migration. You have the use of social media. Okay, that means you are exposed to alternative lifestyles. Okay, it will tell you that it is not just the way to live. You can live like them also, the other people who you view on social media. Then there is employment mobility. There is greater independence. That means they are no longer going to be dependent upon their parents or their family for financial needs. Then you have changing gender relation. There is assertion of women's agency. Agency means control over their decisions. Control over their decisions. That is what to wear, where to go, at what time should I leave. Okay. All of these things can be taken by them. Then traditional institutions may not disappear. Okay, it is not to say that the traditional institutions will disappear finally. No, it is not going to disappear, but they are increasingly being forced to adapt and negotiate. Okay, adapt and negotiate as the newer generation comes forward. When we talk about the constitution, Article 14, it can be quoted here, talking about equality. Okay, with respect to the patriarchal societies, we are talking about equality between the genders as well. Article 19, that is freedom of speech and expression. Article 21, life, dignity, and personal liberty. In fact, in Shakti Vahini versus Union of India 2018, Supreme Court had condemned interference by Khaaps in marriages of consenting adults. They stated that right to choose or right to marry, right to choose a partner should be counted as an inferred right under Article 21. Okay. So the bottom line here is that community institutions, they are legitimate only until they begin violating individual rights and constitutional freedoms. After that, they might be felt as an illegitimate authority, and therefore they must adapt and negotiate to the incoming generations or the progress that the social institution systems have made. Okay. Now coming to this page number 10, GS3 economics and GS2 IR. This is about defense exports and licenses. So the center has eased the norm for defense exports and licenses. Let us learn about it. So there has been revised defense export standard operating procedure. What has been the change? The change is that you no longer require stakeholder consultation. Okay, what is stakeholder consultation? You talk about all the ministries and the government agencies who are concerned before you are going for this SOP. Okay, it has been dispensed with for exports of non-lethal defense items to most destinations. However, we also want to have the certain safeguards. Okay, we are talking about indigenous defense equipments production. Okay, we want to become a power in that, and we also want to export our defense equipments. However, it has to be there with safeguards. Okay, that is, we will not be supplying it to the sensitive countries, and it has also been removed for exports of all items for international tenders and exhibition. Now there is a word, okay, something that I feel that you may not have heard because it is not frequently talked about. It is OGEL. Okay, OGEL. You will see here, OGEL is what? It is Open General Export License Framework. What is this? It is like a export permission. It is like an export permission. That is, what can you export, what can you not export. Okay, this is allowed, this is not allowed. So under OGEL, you'll find that if the exporter is eligible, if the defense item that is being exported is eligible, if the destination that you are exporting to is permitted, then you have a standing license and you can go for multiple exports without seeking fresh approval each time. Okay, it was seen that you are always going for repeated approvals in the earlier times, and it is creating a kind of a barrier to the exports. Okay, right now it has been lifted. So this reduces the delays while retaining the government oversight over sensitive destinations and technologies. Okay, let us see here the defense exports. Defense exports, you can see from this graph. Okay, it is taken from PIB itself. 2014, 686 crores. Okay, our exports grew to 34% to 23,622 crores in 2024-25. Okay, and we have further aspiration. We have further aspirations of increasing our defense export. We have set a target of achieving 50,000 crores in defense exports by 2029-2030. All right. So the Ministry of Department of Defense Production, it has overhauled the OGL framework, which provides eligible exporters a standing one-time authorization of self-generate export authorizations. They can self-generate it for multiple consignments of specified, only the specified defense items they can create or self-generate export authorizations. 3 existing OGL SOPs, they cover major platforms and equipments. Okay, major platforms and equipments, then parts and components, and intra-company transfer of technology. All of this has been consolidated in one single framework. This is one, this is second point, this is the first point, and this is the third point. The validity of OGL has increased from 2 to 3 years. This will reduce the frequency of renewals. That means if you are an exporter, you do not need to frequently renew it, because the number of years you need to renew it has been increased to 3 years. Okay, and associated compliance requirements. Country coverage has also been expanded. Okay, from 41 to all the countries except the countries that are excluded, that is negative and sensitive nations, and also the ones that are subject to the sanctions by the UNSC. All right. So the key thing here to understand is what is OGL. All right. Then further things have been introduced. New provision has been introduced for Indian companies that have long-term contracts with foreign original equipment manufacturers. They can be granted, in OGL can be granted for eligible items for particular foreign original equipment manufacturers. Okay, the range of items eligible for export under OGL has also been expanded, and these reforms are intended to reduce the routine procedural requirements while also retaining the safeguards for sensitive items, technologies, and destinations. All right, so this is important with respect to the exports. All right. Now, the next news is Dhaka positively weighs joining the Mecca Pact. This is your GS2 international relations. Okay. This is a developing news. This is a developing news. Okay. That means we can see some developments on this piece of news in the coming days. All right. Although it may not be there also, but it is a developing news. But what I want you to know is this part, that Bangladesh has given a positive consideration. They want to join the Mecca Pact. Okay. And the domestic politics of Bangladesh have been very supportive. Okay. Whether it is the opposition parties like the opposition parties of Bangladesh like Jamaat-e-Islami or National Citizen Party, they have said that they will support. Okay. What is this Mecca Joint Defense Agreement? Okay. It is a NATO-like agreement. Okay, NATO-like agreement. It is a mutual defense clause under which an attack on any one signatory would be treated as an attack on all three. Which three? We are talking about Pakistan, Saudi, and Turkey. Okay, so Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, they had signed this Mecca Joint Defense Agreement on 7th of August this month. All right. And Bangladesh has expressed that they are positively considering that if they are offered this membership, they are also ready to join. Okay. So we are talking about the two fronts here, that is Pakistan on this side and Bangladesh on this side. And what are the kind of preparations we need to do so that we are strategically at an advantage. All right. As I said, this is a developing news. We may say more of this in the future. Now coming to the PIB portion, this is Union Health Ministry reviews progress towards achieving Malaria Elimination Target by 2030. So some statistics I wanted you to know. I have picked this article. So with an 80% decline in cases or deaths, only 33 high burden districts remaining, the next phase requires a last mile strategy. Okay. So we have seen that there has been a considerable decline of malaria. Okay. And therefore we are moving towards this last mile strategy. There are a number of statistics. We will see it in the next slide also. So what all things are needed from the government now that we are drafting our last mile strategy? We need micro planning. We need increased surveillance. We need test, treat and track pattern. Then we need intersectoral convergence and we need community participation. Okay. As you know that malaria will spread only when the mosquito will bite an infected person, and then it will go on because the incubation will take place for 1 or 2 weeks and then it will bite another person. That is how malaria will spread. All right. So our target regarding this is that we want to eliminate malaria by 2030. and this is aligned with our sustainable developmental goals. Okay, particularly 3.3, SDG 3.3. Now 2015 to 2025, what has been the decadal progress been like? So we have seen that malaria cases and deaths have declined nearly 80%. Okay, that is a significant decline. Then there are high burden districts. High burden districts have been reduced from 155 to 33. Okay, high burden districts reduced from 155 to 33. Then zero transmission progress. 160 districts have reported zero indigenous cases during 2022 to 25. Okay, indigenous cases means that the mosquito or the malaria cases were found within those regions only, and it was not something that came from outside. All right. So zero indigenous cases. Then what is the remaining challenge? 33 high burden districts accounted for 64% of the cases. That means disproportionate number of cases in these high burden districts. And one more intel that is there with respect to these high burden districts is usually these are the ones that are located in the remote regions, in the inaccessible regions. And that is why the number of cases remain stubbornly high. And you have 54% of deaths in 2025, right? There is geographical concentration. The districts are spread across the 9 states and union territories. What is the government strategy now for malaria elimination? So as we said in the first slide, we talked about micro planning. Micro planning means that you decide, you make a plan at the lowest level of administration. Okay, you will have district action plans for the 33 high burden districts because you want to eliminate malaria by 2030. We have village action plans. Then you have test, treat and track. Test, treat and track. That means early diagnosis must be there. Okay, we must not keep postponing it till the symptoms develop or let other people also catch it and then you will diagnose it. This kind of a delay is not to be tolerated. Okay, first. Second, there should be complete treatment and then there should be case tracking. Okay, only then you can eliminate it. Third, strong surveillance. There should be active surveillance of the spread of malaria. There should be assured diagnostics and anti-malarial drugs. Okay, that means people should have access to these anti-malarial drugs and also there must be diagnostics. Okay, especially in remote areas. Then data quality. There must be accurate ABR. This is annual blood examination rate. Okay, annual blood examination rate means, what does this mean? It means how many blood samples did you test divided by population. Okay, the greater is this number, this means more number of people have been tested. Okay, that means more assured you can be that you are on the right path to eliminate malaria, right? And then annual parasite incidence. Annual parasite incidence. Okay, annual parasite incidence would mean that how many confirmed malaria cases are there. Confirmed malaria cases divided by 1000 population. Okay, divided by 1000 population, right? This is annual parasite incidence. Avoid duplicate testing. Separately record asymptomatic, the ones not showing symptoms, mass screening cases. All right, so the data quality, the data integrity has to be maintained. You should not record duplicate cases. You should also have accurate ABRs and APIs. Then there must be intersectoral convergence. That means health, the rural and the urban development bodies and the panchayati raj institutions. Okay, we always talk about the local community awareness as well. There is health, rural, urban development and panchayati raj institutions. They also have to converge. Okay, they have to keep in check the areas that are waterlogged and they are breeding grounds for the mosquitoes. Okay, so mosquito breeding site control must be deployed. And lastly, you will have community participation. That means we must take help from the self-help groups, the volunteers and panchayats for effectively bringing into notice people who are detected with fever or any kind of source reduction is there. All right. So with this, we come to an end for today's discussion. Do write that mains questions that I have given to you. Try to write it in the introduction, body, conclusion format, just with respect to the keywords in the comment box. And if you have any doubts, please do let me know. Thank you so much. All the best.